Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar and workshop series conducted by TCS in lieu of the upcoming SCS exams happening in May 2025. My name is Nick and I'm the lead tutor and evaluator for SCS at TCS. So let's look at the session outcomes. First things first, I'm going to take you through the exam blueprint, thereby highlighting what the examiner tells you about your examination, and you need to adhere to the same guidance when conducting your preparations in the upcoming weeks. And also, I will share some tips which will enable you to develop a higher level of confidence in the upcoming weeks. It's essential that you are confident about your abilities, and whenever you attempt a mock exam, you will definitely feel demotivated because there will be knowledge gaps or issues with application. But don't worry. The objective of attempting each mock under exam condition is to be exposed to these issues so that you can take steps to avoid these issues at your real examination. So you have enough time in the upcoming weeks to conduct your preparations in order to overcome these issues. So whenever you are attempting a mock exam or after attempting each mock exam, if you feel demotivated, always remind yourself that you can overcome these issues when conducting your revision or when conducting your preparations in the upcoming week. So with that in mind, I will highlight further tips which will enable you to develop a high level of confidence. And at the very end, I will talk about what you need to do to manage your stress levels, especially when attempting mock exams under time pressured under a time pressured environment, because it's essential that you get your grips with how to tackle your stress levels, because at this exam your examiner is not just testing your theory knowledge, your application skills. The examiner is also testing whether you can manage your stress levels, because as a management accountant or business owner, one fine day, you will have to have the capability to manage your stress levels. So I will highlight how you should do this when attempting mock exams. And if you champion this technique, then you will successfully manage your stress levels at your real examination. And let me quickly remind you of the upcoming workshops which we have scheduled for you. So after today's webinar, we are done with the webinar series. We are kickstarting the workshop series from next Saturday onwards. And the first workshop will be focused on your F3 syllabus. I will, explain what you should cover when conducting preparations considering your F3 syllabus. And at the same time, I will take you through a mock exam and its answer plan, thereby explaining the logic behind the answer tied to your F3 syllabus. And similarly, in workshops 2 and 3, I will be taking you through P3 and P3 and E3 syllabi, and at the same time taking you through mock exams and their answers. And in each of these workshops, we will be conducting a Q&A. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can always raise them and get them addressed instantaneously. And the final workshop, which happens 2 or 3 days before the exam, I will be sharing last minute tips with you to make sure that you walk into the exam with a high level of positivity, believing in yourself, believing in your skill set, which you have developed over 4 to 5 weeks, so that you'd function really well at your real examination. So make sure to make use of these free resources on offer. Get in touch with me on a weekly basis, which is the best way to keep tabs about your performance and get all your questions answered. All right, so first things first, let's look at what your examiner tells you. If you are to develop good answers, you are supposed to think in terms of developing answers which are 100% aligned with each requirement. So relevance to the requirement is essential, which will enable you to pass this exam comfortably. So most students, right after reading through the scenario, they will start typing their final answer, which is a major problem, because when you do so, as I mentioned in last week's webinar, I mentioned the fact that most students who start typing their final answer right after reading through the scenario, halfway through the answer, they will realize that they are headed in the wrong direction. And because of that, they end up deleting their entire answer and they'd have to start from scratch. When this happens, these students' brains will constantly keep these students reminded about the fact that they wasted time. And when this is the case, when your brain is constantly telling you that you have wasted time, you will try to rush the process. When you're trying to rush the process, again, you will end up developing answers which are not aligned with the requirement, developing answers which are low quality, developing answers which were developed, not considering your theoretical knowledge. And if so, you'd end up failing your exam. So in order to avoid this issue, in order to make sure that you gain good marks at your exam, first things first, you need to develop answers which are 100% aligned with the requirement. And if you can remember, in last week's webinar, I highlighted the best practice. Before you structure your answer or before you develop the answer plan, I asked you to reiterate each requirement in a simpler manner. Why did I ask you to do it? With the prime objective of gaining a clear understanding of what each requirement is all about. So if you had gone through mock exams, especially mock exam 1 or 2, because as per our study plan, by now you should be done with the first 2 mock exams. So if you had gone through these 2 mocks, you know for a fact that in certain subtasks, the requirements are lengthy. And because of that, you'd have to read through these subtasks over and over to gain a good understanding of what each requirement is. So rather than wasting time trying to reread each requirement over and over, what you're supposed to do is simply, reiterate each requirement in your own words in a simpler manner, with the prime motive of gaining a good understanding of each requirement. And at the same time, it helps you when you are developing the answer plan. Whilst developing the answer plan, you can always refer back to a simplified requirement and see whether you are developing an answer which is 100% aligned with the requirement. So in order to achieve the first element, which will pave way for a good answer, you need to make sure that you reiterate each requirement in your words in a concise manner. Then also, the examiner is testing whether you have learned something via E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So that is why your technical knowledge is tested at this exam. So I've heard students saying this. I've seen some tutors saying this as well. Individuals call this a highly practical exam. Yes, it is. SCS exam is a highly practical exam. However, if you do not know your theories, you can't come up with the best type of evaluations or recommendations. So most individuals out there, they're saying that if you need not really know your theories, if you come up with practical answers, you can pass this exam, which is actually not true. For instance, if there's a question tied to updating the risk register, there's a certain methodology which you need to adhere to. As you know, as per what appears within your P3 syllabus, if we are to update the risk register, first things first, we have to understand the impact of the risk which is highlighted within the scenario. And at the same time, we have to understand the likelihood of recurrence or likelihood of us being exposed to the type of risk which is highlighted in the scenario. So all these things are highlighted within your P3 syllabus. We have to think in terms of the impact of the risk and the likelihood of us being exposed to the risk. And based on it, we can categorize the risk as per the TARA or the TARA framework. So that is how you are supposed to determine the appropriate mitigatory action which we should adopt based on what's highlighted within the TARA framework. So if you are clueless about the TARA framework, if you are clueless about how to categorize each type of risk, then you won't get good marks, even if you try to come up with a practical answer. So, always, if you look at another question to do with strategic options, for instance, the examiner will say, okay, evaluate the strategic option. When doing so, the best practice is to utilize your your knowledge which you have gained concerning the SAF framework or the suitability, acceptability, and feasibility framework. So without knowing this, if you try to develop your arguments, yes, you will gain some marks, but you won't get full marks. So why should you lose out some marks when you can easily utilize the relevant theoretical concepts, thereby developing a holistic answer? Because theoretical concepts are intended to ensure that you conduct your evaluations or come up with recommendations which are holistic, which are fulfilling. So in order to ensure that you gain the best amount of marks, it's essential that you learn your theories, because if you're clueless about the SAF framework, you'd struggle to address a question to do with strategic option evaluation. If you're on the other hand, clueless about the TARA framework or how to update the risk register, then you'd struggle with such a question. And if you don't know what the Mendelow's matrix is, you will struggle with a question to do with stakeholder management, and likewise. And if you don't know what integrated reporting is, what 6 capitals are, then definitely you will struggle with such a question at your real exam. So it's essential that you are conversant with all theories, all syllabus areas covered within your E3, F3, and P3 syllabi. So let me quickly tell you what you need to be conversant with. I'm not going to take you through all these points. Instead, I'm just going to direct your attention towards the main headings. You need to be conversant with theories and concepts tied to strategy, evaluation, and formulation, which is covered within your E3 syllabus, because as you know, as a senior finance manager, you are involved with long-term decision making. You need to adopt an outside-in approach. You are directly reporting to board members. So in such a scenario, it's essential that you know different strategy evaluation models or concepts, as well as concepts tied to strategy formulation. Also, you have to be conversant with board responsibilities, because you are working within a quoted company. You are expected to, the board members are expected to fulfill the needs of shareholders. They have to think about shareholders first before they do anything. And at the same time, they have to uphold corporate governance best practices. So that's why board responsibilities will be tested. Then corporate governance and ethics, whenever we are making decisions, they have to be ethically sound. And also, as I mentioned earlier, fall in line with corporate governance best practices. So all these elements are covered within your E3 syllabus. Then focusing your attention towards F3, as a senior finance manager, whenever you are conducting a certain evaluation or recommending something, you have to make sure that your recommendations or your evaluations make financial sense. So that's why you have to be conversant with finance strategy, highlighted within your F3 syllabus. Also, you are supposed to be involved with risk identification, risk evaluation, and risk mitigation activities. So that's exactly why it's essential that you gain a good understanding of what's covered within your P3 syllabus tied to risk identification and mitigation. And there are 6 different risks highlighted within your risk report. You need to have the capability to understand whether the company had come up with appropriate mitigatory action with the intention of managing each type of risk, whether there are any shortcomings as per what's highlighted within the risk report. In addition to that, you need to have the ability to understand whether we have missed out on certain important risks by going through the risk report. So if you had already referred to our annotated pre-scene, if you had already watched our 4 pre-scene analysis videos, you know what I'm talking about. I've highlighted 3 main shortcomings considering what appears within Leothayre's risk report. So, and when developing answers, we have made sure to cover all these different risks as well. So you have to be conversant with all these different types of risks, not just the risks which are highlighted within the risk report, not just the shortcomings as per the risk report. You have to be conversant with other different types of risks as well. Also, your knowledge pertaining to internal audit responsibilities will be tested at the exam, because you are supposed to provide some type of leadership concerning the control environment of your organization. That's a primary responsibility of a senior finance manager. We have to see whether we have to be involved with developing the controls within the organization. And at the same time, we have to see whether individuals or employees are adhering to these controls or not. That's where the internal audit comes into play. So you have to be conversant with internal audit responsibilities again, which falls in, which is included within your P3 syllabus. Also, you have to be conversant with the internal controls, considering you have to have the capability to recommend internal controls, considering the information presented in each scenario. So you have to be conversant with all these syllabus areas. If not, you are taking a risk or testing your luck at your real exam. So, I didn't go through the entire document on a point-by-point basis. However, I hope you would have already referred to it, because I've shared this, document previously via the WhatsApp group. This can be downloaded via paid and free content via our website. And, we have made sure to cover all these syllabus areas when developing our 6 mock exams to make sure that you know how each syllabus area is tested at the exam. So that's an essential part of your preparation. That should be an essential part of your preparation, where you gain technical knowledge concerning all syllabus areas in the upcoming weeks. Also, just knowing your theories won't help. You need to work on your application skills. So that is where your practical thinking comes into play within this exam, because as I mentioned earlier, if there's a question to do with strategic options, there's absolutely no point of you explaining the SAF framework without conducting the evaluation or without implementing the SAF framework, considering the information presented to you in each scenario. And again, if there's a question to do with stakeholder management, there's absolutely no point of you explaining the Mendelow's matrix. Instead, your job is to apply the Mendelow's matrix to a scenario the company is facing at the moment. And the same should be said about a question tied to the TARA framework or risk management. There's absolutely no point of explaining the entire TARA framework. Rather than that, as per your understanding, you have to categorize the risk. Let's assume you categorize a certain risk as under the transfer category as per the TARA framework. So if you categorize a certain risk under the transfer category, then you have to explain, or you have to come up with, so you have to recommend a mitigated action which is tied to a transfer strategy, rather than explaining all different quadrants of the TARA framework. So application comes into play. Application is heavily tested in this exam. So that is exactly why you need to fine tune your answering technique, because as per what I highlighted in last week's webinar, whilst attempting each mock exam, you are supposed to develop something called an answer plan. So when you're developing the answer plan, you are structuring your answer. This is when you are trying to figure out, okay, what type of theoretical elements can be brought in to enhance the answer. And at the same time, you are trying to figure out, okay, how can I apply these theoretical concepts with the intention of, providing a real solution to your company. So when attempting mock exams, you are supposed to practice your application skills. And after attempting each mock exam, you are supposed to watch the master classes. When you are watching the master classes, you will learn theory and application, because I will be teaching you the theoretical concepts covered within each mock exam, and how to work on your application, how to structure your answers. I will be teaching you the logic behind each answer via each masterclass. So this is when you are actually learning theories and application skills. And after you have learned these things, you are not expected to move on to the next mock exam. Instead, you are supposed to practice your skill set, test and see whether you have gained some knowledge by watching the master classes. So with this in mind, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans. So when it comes to redeveloping answer plans, you are not supposed to time yourself, just do it leisurely. The objective is to make sure that you understand how to structure the answer, make sure that you have understood the logic behind each answer. So for instance, let's assume you are done with mock exam 1 or mock exam 2. And let's assume, after attempting mock exam 2, you have already watched the master classes. Now you know your theories and application. Then you are supposed to conduct your revision. You are supposed to test your knowledge. So when it comes to testing your knowledge, you are supposed to redevelop answer plans. And when it comes to redeveloping answer plans, focus on section number 1 of mock exam 2 first. Develop the answer plan on your own without looking at the answer plans provided by TCS. And once you are done with it, compare your fresh answer plans to TCS's answer plans to see whether you have developed or structured the answer properly, or whether still you can see some shortcomings in your answer. And once you are satisfied with this process, move on to section number 2. Go through the answer plan of section number 2. After doing so, redevelop the answer plan. After you have redeveloped the answer plan, compare your answer plan concerning section number 2 to TCS's answer plan to see how you can further refine your answering technique. If you do so, once you're done with all 6 mock exams, you can make sure that you have learned all theory elements and significantly improved your application skills, because when revising, you are trying to fine-tune your application skills. That is where redeveloping answer plans come into play. All right. And when developing answers, you are supposed to provide well-structured answers. That's essential. That's why it's essential that you master your answering technique. And in order to master your answering technique, it's essential that you attempt each mock exam on the exam conditions. And when attempting each mock exam, practice our answering and time management techniques, which we taught in last week's webinar. So last week's webinar is extremely important. If you missed out on it, please go watch the recorded version, which can be accessed via YouTube and our student dashboard. Learn these techniques and implement these techniques in order to master them. If so, at your exam, you will develop well-structured answers which are totally aligned with each requirement. You will know how to work on your application skills, and at the same time, you will never run out of time. And after you have planned each answer, your final answer should be in paragraph form, as I mentioned in last week's webinar. So your answer plan will look something like this. Okay, so it's the structure. It's actually a mind map. And as per our answering technique, you are supposed to develop this mind map or this plan within 30 minutes. Then once you're done with it, utilizing your remaining time, which is 25 minutes, you are supposed to expand the answer plan in paragraph form. Let me quickly show you how your final answer should look like. Your final answer should be in paragraph form. So that's why I asked you to dedicate 25 minutes of your time in each section to flesh out the skeleton or expand the answer plan, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. So your answer plan should look like this. You should take 30 minutes to develop this. Once you have planned out your answer, utilizing your remaining time, which is 25 minutes of your time, you should finalize your answer in paragraph form, thereby developing a paragraph per answer point. Okay, so that's exactly what the examiner asks you to do. And whenever you are arguing something, always make sure to justify it so that your arguments carry weight. So when it comes to justifying your arguments, always think about what type of theoretical elements you can utilize with the intention of justifying your arguments. For instance, if there's a question to do with updating the risk register, always utilize what we have learned via the P3 syllabus tied to how you categorize the risks concerning the impact of each risk and the likelihood of us being exposed to the risk. And based on this categorization, determine the risk mitigatory strategy as per the TARA framework. And once you have determined the risk mitigatory strategy, aligned to it, come up with your different types of mitigatory strategies. So if you do so, you are relying on theoretical concepts with the intention of coming up with the best type of answer. And therefore, at the same time, you are making sure that your arguments or your answers are well justified. So if you stick to our answering technique, you can fulfill all these things. So that's exactly why, if you missed out on last week's webinar, it's essential that you watch the recorded version. And before the exam, what are you expected to do? You are expected to study all areas of the syllabus. So this is what the examiner is telling you. I'm not telling you this. You have to be conversant with all syllabus areas. That's why you have to attempt all 6 mock exams and conduct your revision based on the same 6 mock exams to make sure that you're conversant with how each syllabus area can be tested at your examination. Also, you have to work on your application skills. This is why I said that it's essential that you practice mock exams under exam conditions, thereby implementing the answering technique, which we have highlighted. Because if you do so whilst doing the exam, you are trying to practice your application skills. And after attempting each mock exam, you are supposed to watch master classes. And when watching master classes, you will really understand how you should work on your application. Once you have learned your application skills, you are supposed to test your knowledge by redeveloping answer plans, again practicing your application skills. So if you stick to this process, it's as if you are going through application skills focused on one single mock exam thrice, and this is enough and more practice for you to get everything right at your real examination. And leading up to the exam, before the exam, you are supposed to practice tasks. So it's essential. The examiner is asking you to practice mock exams. And what type of mock exams are you supposed to practice? You are supposed to type or write full answers. So what are full answers? Full answers are aligned with full mock exams. A full mock exam consists of 3 different sections, just like in your real exam. So when attempting mock exams, you have to sit in one place and attempt the 3 sections, just like in the exam, thereby dedicating 1 hour per section. So I've dealt with students who, attempt mock exams, but when attempting mock exams, they don't know, they do not do it under exam conditions. So, some students, for instance, let's assume they are, attempting mock number 3. They will attempt section number 1 today, section number 2 tomorrow, and section number 3 day after tomorrow. But at the exam, you have to sit in one place 3 hours at a stretch and attempt all 3 sections one after the other without any breaks between sections. So it's essential that you are practicing under a time pressured environment, practicing under exam conditions, because when you do so, you will understand that due to fatigue, you will experience stress, especially towards the last section. In section number 3, most students struggle not because they don't have knowledge, but because they are exposed to stress because of them being exposed to fatigue. So in order to manage these fatigue levels, it's essential that you are exposed to these type of issues when conducting preparation. So that's exactly why we have developed an exam platform, which is the exact replica of the Pearson VUE system on which you'd attempt your real exam. So if you had already attempted mock exam 1, which can be accessed via both paid and free content, you know what I'm talking about. So it's essential that you attempt each mock exam under exam conditions, which will ensure that you are exposed to exam stresses, you are exposed to fatigue. I want you to experience these things right now when conducting your preparations. If so, you can take steps to overcome these issues and therefore avoid these issues at your real examination. So that's why it's essential that you practice, not just practice mock exams, you have to practice mocks, thereby typing or writing full answers. So there's no point of attempting mini mocks, which consist of just 1 or 2 sections. There's no point of attempting each section in isolation with breaks in between. Instead, just like in your real exam, attempt a full mock, which consists of 3 sections, and you have to attempt each section one after the other across 3 hours. Practice this now. If so, you will know what to do to overcome stressful situations, because at the very end of today's webinar, I'm going to explain these things in depth. And after you practice your stress management techniques, you will master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques by the time you are walking into your real exam. So that's what you are expected to do before the exam. And this is exactly what I highlighted in last week's webinar as well. And during the exam, you are supposed to plan your answers. So that's why you need to stick to our answering technique, in which you need to dedicate 5 minutes of your time to read through the scenario, 30 minutes of your time to develop something called an answer plan or an answer structure. This is where you are planning out your answer, trying to figure out whether you have covered all information presented in the scenario, trying to figure out whether you have developed your answer which is 100% aligned with the requirement, trying to figure out whether you have brought in a relevant theoretical concept with the intention of providing a holistic answer, trying to figure out whether you have applied this theoretical concept in a practical sense. So in order to do all these things, you need some time. So don't, right after reading through the scenario, don't start typing your final answer. Spend some time to plan out your answer. I'm not asking you to do this. It's the CIMA examiner who wants you to plan your answers. So if you want to plan answers within 30 minutes, it's essential that you master your answering technique. So although I'm asking you to develop answer plans within 30 minutes, when you implement it for the first time, you will take 40 to 45 minutes. That's quite all right. Keep practicing this technique over and over across the mock exams, because by the time you are in mock number 3 or 4, you will understand that although you ran out of time when attempting the first 2 mock exams, from mock 3 onwards, you will feel that, okay, I'm doing a bit better. And by the time you are in the last mock exam, you will understand that you have the capability of developing answer plans within just 30 minutes. So this takes practice. you are not in a position to develop answer plans within 30 minutes at this stage. However, with practice, when you attempt mock exams under exam conditions, you can make sure that you have the capability of developing answer plans within 30 minutes. If so, you will definitely develop answer plans within 30 minutes at your real exam. If you do so, you will never run out of time. And at the same time, you will come up with a well-structured answer, which is considered as a good answer. All right. And the marker is under strict instructions to mark answers on their merits. So as I mentioned in last week's webinar, the marker is not looking at the quantity of your answer, not looking at the number of sentences, the number of words and whatnot. Instead, the examiner is looking at the quality. That's why the examiner wants you to plan your answer. That's why we are asking you to develop answer plans. Because if you plan your answer, you are taking steps towards making sure that you develop an answer which is 100% aligned with the requirement, 100%, and at the same time, 100% aligned with mark allocations. Because in last week's webinar, I taught you how to determine the number of points you need to include under each subtask based on the weightages provided. So the weightages indicate mark allocations. When you know the mark allocations, you can easily work out the number of points which you need to include under each subtask. When you do so, you are taking steps to develop answers which are 100% aligned with mark allocations. Therefore, your answers will not be too long or too short. When this is the case, you will gain the best amount of marks at your real exam. So it's essential that you master all these techniques. So as I mentioned earlier, if you missed last week's webinar, please go watch the recorded version and keep practicing these techniques over and over. Even if you don't invest on our content, that's totally fine. You might have purchased material from other providers. Implement these techniques when with the intention of mastering these techniques, because all these techniques are 100% aligned with what the examiner expects you to do, both before the exam and at your real examination. And the marking criteria, as I mentioned earlier, mark allocation for each subtask appears as a percentage, and based on it, you are supposed to determine how many points you need to include under each subtask. I explained all these things in depth in last week's webinar, webinar 3, answering technique. And as I mentioned earlier, marks are allocated based on merit. The marker is looking at the quality, not the quantity, because the examiner is trying to replicate a real life corporate environment. So your superior is never going to count the number of words you included within an email. Instead, the superior is going to see whether you have covered all information which he or she shared with you via the email. And at the same time, the superior is going to look at the quality of your answer, quality of your evaluations, quality of your recommendations. Your superior or your boss is never going to count the words and see how many words you have included. So, that in itself says that in a real life corporate environment, since your superior is not going to, count the words at your exam, don't waste time to count your words or the length of your answer. Instead, focus your attention towards the quality of your answer plan. Okay, so before we move on to the 2 remaining parts, let me quickly mention what we offer at TCS. So I'm on the SCS page. If you are yet to check the free user free account or the free content rather, sorry, if you're yet to check the free content, click on this button and create a free user account. Once you have done so, you will gain access to our student dashboard and go to my courses. In front of SCS free, you would see an access content button. Click on it. And via this, you would gain access to the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops which we conduct. The free study material, which includes the SCS syllabus areas, the previous document which I showed you, and the SCS pre-scene, your pre-scene which the examiner shared with you, and the SCS pre-scene mind map, which is this. I've summarized the entire pre-scene so that it makes your life easy when it comes to remembering the most important points highlighted within the pre-scene document, and this can be downloaded from our website. So these are the free resources on offer, and on top of that, you'd gain access to the answer plan of mock exam 1, based on which we have conducted last week's webinar, and we will be conducting the workshops which we intend to kickstart next Saturday onwards. And via the mocks tab, you will gain access to the questions and the suggested answers of mock exam 1. And via the exams tab, by clicking on SCS mock 1, you can attempt SCS mock 1 in its entirety under exam conditions via the exam platform which we have developed. So this is the best way to test and see your whether you are in a position to implement answering and time management techniques which we taught in last week's webinar. So if you missed it, go watch the recorded version. After doing so, attempt the mock exam under exam conditions by clicking on this button. All right, so all these resources are provided under the free content. So check these free content out. And if you're interested in investing on our paid content, click on this button and check the sample material before you do so. And if you are yet to join our SCS WhatsApp discussion forum, click on this button and join it. Via this group, we will keep you informed about the weekly webinars and workshops, the commencement dates and times. And at the same time, we will share free resources with you. And if you have any questions or concerns, we will always be there to help you guys out. So join it if you're yet to do so. And talking about the two packages we offer, the essential course and the premium course. The essential course is designed for those who have completed their OTQ exams. So if you have completed your E3, F3 and P3 OTQs, you have already learned your theories. It's simply a matter of improving application. So in order to improve your application skills, you simply need to attempt the 6 mock exams which we have developed. So under the essential course, you have you have access to the recorded versions of all webinars and workshops. 6 mock exams with suggested answers. We have made sure to cover all syllabus areas via these 6 mock exams, and these 6 mocks are 100% aligned with your pre-scene. There at the very end, you would have seen the news articles, and based on these news articles, scenarios will be thrown at you at your real exam, and we have utilized the same news articles when developing these 6 mock exams. And you'd also gain access to 4 pre-scene analysis videos. Once you have watched these videos, you would gain an in-depth understanding of what appears within your pre-scene document. You need not conduct your own research. And you'd also gain access to the annotated pre-scene. This is what the annotated pre-scene looks like. So we have come up with tutor annotations with the intention of summarizing the information presented in the pre-scene. And at the same time, we have also indicated the probable exam scenarios which can be tested tied to this information, and the probable syllabus areas which can be tested tied to all the information which appears within the pre-scene. Also, you'd gain access to the industry analysis and financial analysis slides. Let me quickly show what I'm talking about. So the industry analysis slides are divided into 4 main parts. In the first part, we have defined the industry. In the second and third parts, we have explained about the competitive landscape and the industry trends to ensure that you gain an understanding of what type of scenarios can be thrown at you at your real exam. And at the very end, we have considered 2 companies, thereby explaining two real-life companies, so explaining how they operate within this industry, so that you'd gain a better understanding of how your industry operates in a real sense. And we have also evaluated the financial statements, making sure to keep things simple so that you can easily understand the financial standing of your chosen company. So we have evaluated the SOPL, the SOFP, and the statement of changes in equity. And at the very end, we have conducted a ratio analysis. Again, we have evaluated each ratio in depth. All right, so these are the resources on offer if you opt for the essential course. And you'd also gain access to top 20 likely issue slides, which indicate the most probable scenarios which can be thrown at you at your real exam. You'd also gain access to a case study familiarization kit. Once you have gone through this kit, you will gain a good understanding about the technicalities behind your real exam. You'd also access to the tutor. You'd also gain access to the tutor managed live chat and the OTQ revision cards. So if you go for the essential course, your objective should be to improve your application skills since you have already learned theory. And after attempting each mock exam, if you feel that you struggled with a certain subtask or a theoretical concept, simply refer to the OTQ revision cards in a jiffy. You are in a position to brush up your knowledge rather than going through bulky study texts or your old study notes. So the essential course is priced at £299. Talking about the premium course, this is designed for those who are coming through the exemption route and those who had failed the SCS exam previously. So both these sets of students have the same problem, there are gaps in theory knowledge and application. So with the intention of bridging your gaps tied to theory knowledge and application, we have come up with additional resources and included them under the premium course. So on top of what you'd gain access to under the essential course, you'd gain access to the online mock exam platform on which you can attempt all 6 mock exams under exam conditions, which is the best way to master your answering, time management, and stress management techniques. You will also receive one-on-one tutor feedback on 2 mock exams, namely mocks 3 and 5. Let me quickly show you the type of feedback on offer. So as you can see, we have evaluated each paragraph, each point in depth with the prime intention of making sure that you understand your shortcomings, because if you understand your shortcomings, you can take steps to overcome them when you are redeveloping answer plans or when you are conducting your revision. So, you can see the type of feedback on offer at TCS. It takes me 3 hours to mark one single paper. And at the very end, mark allocations are provided on a subtask by subtask basis. We have also indicated the success rate so that you can easily understand the subtasks, which are highlighted in yellow, which indicates the subtasks in which your performance is substandard. After receiving tutor feedback, your next step should be to again redevelop the answer plan. And when it comes to redeveloping the answer plan, you are simply supposed to focus on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow. If you stick to this process, it's as if you are primarily focusing your attention towards overcoming your issues, because when conducting preparations, that should be your objective. If you understand your issues, then you can take steps to overcome them. If you overcome them, you would be extremely successful at your real exam. So that's a type of feedback on offer. And you'd also gain access to the answer plans of all 6 mock exams. You saw what an answer plan looks like a while back. So, you won't gain access to just the mock exams and suggested answers. You will also gain access to the answer plan, which is the structure of each suggested answer. So rather than going through pages and pages of suggested answers and trying to figure out the logic behind each answer, trying to figure out how to structure your answer, try to figure out theoretical concept application, this is the best way to make sure that you improve your application skills, improve your answer structuring, improve your theory knowledge, because you can easily understand the logic behind each answer when you go through a summarized answer structure. And this helps you when it comes to conducting your revision as well, because it should be simply a matter of trying to replicate these answer plans when conducting revision. So it's easy for you to figure out whether you have included the same type of points when you were redeveloping answer plans. You can easily figure out whether you have missed out on certain points rather than you having to go through pages and pages of suggested answers. All right, so that's on offer. And also you'd gain access to 15 masterclasses. So from mock 2 to 6, we have developed masterclasses, because the masterclasses concerning mock 1 are conducted via the webinars and workshop series. So in these 15 masterclasses, we are taking you through the logic behind each section which appears within each of our mock exams. So whilst teaching you the logic behind each answer, we are teaching you the relevant theoretical concept as well as application skills. So if you have knowledge gaps concerning theory and application, simply watch these masterclasses to learn or improve your skill set in a jiffy. And since you have access to all these resources under the premium course, we guarantee your pass. That's why the premium course comes with a pass guarantee. So if you invest on the premium course and end up failing, you would gain access to the same premium content in your subsequent sitting free of charge. However, in order to claim the pass guarantee, you have to complete these 3 requirements. You have to complete all 6 mock exams. If not, you will be testing your luck at your real exam. Just because you invest on premium, you won't pass unless and otherwise you attempt all 6 mocks. Also, when attempting each mock exam, make sure that you don't refer to any of the suggested answers, the answer plans, or the master classes. I want you to do a serious job, an honest job when attempting each mock exam, because the objective of attempting mocks is not to come up with a 100% accurate answer. The objective is to make sure that you understand your shortcomings. Make sure that you understand that you struggle under pressure. You struggle when operating in a time pressured environment. Make sure that you are exposed to exam fatigue. So it's best that you are exposed to all these issues so that you can take steps to overcome them when conducting preparations. And when you are exposed to all these issues 6 times before the exam, you will know how to tackle them, how to deal with them in a successful manner. And you have to meet the performance criteria of 40% or higher concerning the last 3 mock exams, because by the time you are in mock exam 4, you should have improved your answering and time management techniques. So therefore, if you do a serious job, you can easily gain more than 40%. That's why, in order to make sure that you do a serious job when it comes to the last 3 mock exams, we have come up with this performance criteria. So the price of the premium package is £849, which can be paid in 2 installments of £424 each, or you can pay in full and save £100. If so, the price is just going to be £749. So click on either of these buttons to invest on your preferred course. And all products are available until the 30th of August 2025. So if you're planning on sitting for the SCS exam in August, you can invest now, which gives you a head start so that you have enough and more time to conduct your preparations. And let me quickly take you to the SCS study plan to make sure that you understand what you're supposed to achieve within this week. So we are in week number 4 according to the study plan, and the weekly study hours which you should allocate is 9 hours, just 9 hours within this week. So you are supposed to focus your attention towards mock number 3. So attempt mock number 3 via the exam platform. Once you have attempted mock number 3, watch the 3 master classes to learn theory and improve application. Once you have learned your theory and application, redevelop the answer plan to see whether you have really learned something via the master class. Also, you are receiving tutor feedback for mock 3. So, expect tutor feedback within 72 hours of you attempting mock number 3. Once you have, received tutor feedback, you will know what your shortcomings are and try to avoid them when conducting your preparations in the upcoming weeks. And at the same time, focused on the subtasks which are highlighted in yellow. Again, redevelop your answer plans. So that's what you're supposed to achieve within this week. So if you are yet to start preparations, we are already in mock number 3. It will be a bit too hectic. You'd have to dedicate more than 9 hours of study time. If you're planning to start right now, still you have time, because if you can dedicate something like 12 to 18 hours in the upcoming weeks on a weekly basis, then you can easily get all 6 mock exams done. Not just the mock attempts, you can also make sure that you spend considerable time to redevelop answer plans, thereby conducting revision. If so, you can easily pass your upcoming SCS exam. Okay, so that's what we offer. Having said that, let's move on to the second part of today's webinar, in which I'm going to share some tips pertaining to developing confidence. So the best way to develop your confidence levels, the best way to ensure that you are headed in the correct direction, is to refer to the study plan, which I explained in webinar number 1, or you can simply refer to the study plan, which can be accessed via the website which I showed you a while back. So if you stick to the study plan, you are taking steps to ensure that you attempt all 6 mocks and conduct revision focused on the same 6 mock exams, because if you do so, you need not worry at your real examination. So the only way to build your confidence is to stick to the study plan. Right now, if you're done with the first 2 mock exams, you might be worried because you might have gone wrong in mock number 1 as well as 2, because our mocks are tough. So, you have to bear with us because, it's better to be exposed to tough situations right now rather than, being exposed to these situations for the first time at your real exam. So even though you feel, bad about yourself after attempting each mock exam, which you will definitely feel, however, you can always remind yourself, you can always fix these issues when you are conducting revision. So that's why it's essential that you start right now. If you are yet to start, you have to start right now rather than waiting until the last moment. Because if you wait until the last 2 weeks, for instance, 90% of the students out there, they wait until the last 2 weeks to start preparations. When you try to do everything within 2 weeks, you will definitely have time to attempt the 6 mocks, but you won't have time to revise. So when you are revising, you are taking steps to improve your skill set. And if you improve your skill set, your confidence will improve significantly. So although you feel down right now after attempting the first mock or the second mock, by the time you are in mocks 4, 5, and 6, you will see a tremendous improvement in your skill set, which will drive your confidence. And if you're confident before the exam, you will be confident at your real exam. And it's essential that you stick to a routine at least in the upcoming 5 weeks, in which you need to make up your mind to wake up and sleep at a predetermined time. If you are finding it hard to wake up and sleep at a predetermined time, focus on your daily meal intake. Have your breakfast, lunch, and dinner at predetermined time intervals. If so, you will fall asleep easily. And if you fall asleep at a predetermined time, then you will wake up at a predetermined time as well. So, I want you guys to rest both mentally and physically in the upcoming 5 weeks, because I know for a fact it's tough. You have to balance your, work responsibilities. You might be running your business. Then, your responsibilities are much larger. And on top of that, you have to fulfill the needs of your family members. On top of all these things, you need to stick to a study plan. You need to attempt 6 mocks and conduct revision, which is not going to be easy. This is a tough exam. This is a tough process. So when you are going through a tough process, it's essential that you take steps to rest your mind and body. That is why it's beneficial for you to stick to a routine. So if you are not into routines, at least in the upcoming 5 weeks, try to practice this so that you are in a position to manage a stressful time period, both mentally and physically. And the best way to develop confidence is to practice mock exams under exam conditions, which will expose you to fatigue, which will expose you to stress, which will ensure that you understand how you struggle when operating in a time pressured environment. It's essential that you are exposed to these issues right now rather than at your exam for the first time. Because when you're exposed to all these issues across all 6 mocks, that itself will be a good practice for you to ensure that you know that you are exposed to these type of problems. If you don't know the type of problems you are going to face, you will definitely freeze at your real examination. So practice mocks under exam conditions, and when doing so, use our exam platform if you have access to it, which is the best way, because it's as if you are replicating the real examination whenever you are attempting a mock exam. And when attempting mocks, do it in isolation. I know for a fact, if you have kids, then whenever you are home, they would love to spend time with you, and so would you. However, the problem is when attempting mock exams, you can't let them disturb you. So lock yourself in a room, attempt each mock exam in isolation, just like in your real exam. Try to replicate exam conditions whenever you are attempting mock exams, so that you know how it feels and what this experience is all about before you walk into your real exam. And stick to the exam technique routine, which I highlighted in last week's webinar, in which you are supposed to dedicate 5 minutes of your time towards reading, 30 minutes of your time towards planning, and 25 minutes of your time towards typing your answer. So as I mentioned earlier, although I'm asking you to develop the answer plan within 30 minutes, you won't have the capability to do so when you're trying it for the first time. So it's essential that you get your grips with this technique. So in order to get grips with this technique, you have to keep practicing this. And when towards the last 2 mock exams, when you know for a fact that you are never run out of time, you are developing well-structured answers, you are doing better than what you used to do in mocks 1 and 2. When you know for a fact that you have improved your skill set, improved your answering and time management, as well as stress management techniques, it will drive to a higher level of confidence. So the best way when conducting your preparations, the best way to improve your confidence is to stick to our study plan. And when attempting each mock exam, attempt it under exam conditions with the intention of mastering or practicing answering, time management, and stress management techniques. Because if you practice these 3 techniques when attempting mocks, you can champion them at your real examination. And even after sticking to this process, you will be encountering stress whenever you are attempting a mock exam, especially towards section 3. Okay, so I'm going to highlight or share some tips with you with the intention of making sure that you are capable of managing stressful situations. And from mock 3 onwards, I want you to keep practicing on top of the time and answering and time management techniques, which I taught you in last week's session. I want you to keep practicing stress management techniques as well. So the best way to manage your stress levels is to simply stick to our answering technique. Because when you are sticking to our answering technique, as you can see clearly, you are not trying to multitask. You are focusing on reading first, then moving towards planning. And once you're done with your plan, when you know what you are supposed to include within your answer, it's simply a matter of typing your fully fledged answer or your final answer. So most students out there, as I mentioned earlier, they read through the entire scenario. After doing so, they try to plan as well as type at the same time. So as I mentioned earlier, most students, after reading through each scenario, they start typing their final answer. So when you are typing your answer, you are trying to figure out, okay, what type of points should I include? And at the same time, you are trying to, type all the points in paragraph form, which is not easy. Why is it not easy? Because you are operating in a time pressured environment. So when operating in a time pressured environment, you cannot multitask. It's impossible unless and otherwise you have meditated for like 15-20 years and built this capacity or increase the brain capacity. If not, don't try to multitask when operating in a time pressured environment. So by sticking to our answering technique, you are making sure that you are not trying to multitask. Instead, you have factioned out the process. By factioning out this process, you are making sure that you are avoiding unnecessarily stressful situations. And also, you need to understand how our brain functions. So at the exam, as a senior finance manager, you are supposed to develop answers which are rational. And if you are involved with rational decision making, you need to use the front part of your brain, which is known as the prefrontal cortex, which is this part of your brain. So if you think through your prefrontal cortex, you will come up with rational evaluations and decisions. If so, you will gain extremely good marks at your real exam. However, the problem is the attention span or the capability of the prefrontal cortex is limited to just 45 minutes. You might have experienced this at office. You can focus on something for something like 45 minutes to 1 hour, but beyond that point, you want to take a break. I'm not talking about a huge break, but at least a 2 or 5 minute break. So there's a tendency for you to take a 2 or 5 minute break every 45 minutes or every hour. So at office, you can do so. If you're exposed to a stressful situation, or if you feel that you can't focus anymore, you can take a break. Yeah, you can walk away from your cubicle or your workstation. You can have a chat with your colleagues, crack a joke, or if you are into drinking tea or coffee, you can do so. If you're into smoking, you can smoke. You can take a stroll. You can do all these things to distract you from a stressful situation. And once you are done with it, you can sit and start focusing once more for something like 45 minutes to 60 minutes. However, at the exam, can you do this? You can't take a break between sections. So you have to make sure that you do something to rest your prefrontal cortex even when operating in a time pressured environment. And the only way to rest your prefrontal cortex is not to be involved with planning for 45 minutes at a stretch. And as per our answering technique, you can see that you are supposed to utilize your prefrontal cortex for 5 minutes when you are reading. Then you are supposed to use your prefrontal cortex for 30 minutes, 100% when planning your answer. But when it comes to typing, since you know what you should include in the answer, since you have already planned out your answer, it's simply a matter of expanding your answer plan or typing. So when it comes to typing, when you know which answer points you need to include, you need not utilize your prefrontal cortex 100%. And therefore, by sticking to this technique, it's as if you are enabling the prefrontal cortex to rest a bit towards the last 25 minutes of each section. This itself will ensure that you are avoiding stressful situations, because if you try to utilize your prefrontal cortex 3 hours at a stretch, you will be exposed to brain freeze. Okay, so in order to avoid brain freeze, Stick to our answering technique. If you do so, you are not multitasking. And towards the last 20 to 25 minutes, it's as if you are resting your prefrontal cortex. Even after doing this, if you are still encountering stress, that's quite normal, especially given the fact that you are operating in a time-pressured environment. When you are doing so, fatigue leads to stress. So that's why I said I kept saying across this webinar that towards the last section or section number 3, you will be exposed to some type of a stressful situation which you didn't experience in sections 1 or 2. Why is this the case? This is due to fatigue. Now I'm doing this webinar for the past hour. If I keep talking for 2 more hours, towards the 3rd hour, I will experience fatigue. I will tend to take a break, but at your exam you can't take a break. So even if you stick to this answering technique, even if you had actively taken steps to rest your prefrontal cortex in the last 20 to 25 minutes of each section, in section number 3, for instance, you will experience some type of stress which is tied to fatigue. So whenever you are experiencing this, you need to take steps to switch off something called the amygdala. So this small part of your brain is known as the amygdala, and this gives you the fight or flight response. What is a fight or flight response? When the amygdala is in play, the brain will tell you to either fight a stressful situation. So I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you why the amygdala gets activated. The amygdala gets activated whenever you are exposed to a stressful situation. And what exposes you to a stressful situation? When you try to overburden your prefrontal cortex. So let's assume you are done with the first 2 sections and you are in section number 3. You're experiencing fatigue. Still, you are trying to keep fighting with fatigue. You'd experience stress. Still, you have to keep fighting the stressful situation. When you try to overburden your prefrontal cortex, brain functions will shift to this amygdala, this small part of your brain. And when the amygdala is in play, as I mentioned earlier, you will be exposed to a fight or flight response. A fight response is a situation where your brain is asking you to fight a stressful situation. And a flight response is a situation where the brain is asking you to move away from or get out of a stressful situation. So you can't adhere to the flight response because you can't, stop your exam and walk away. That's not how this exam is structured. So the only option at your disposal is to go for a fight response. You have to fight a stressful situation. So if you don't know how to fight a stressful situation, you'd, keep burdening your prefrontal cortex some more. So rather than, burdening your prefrontal cortex, you need to take steps to switch off your amygdala. If not, if you try to keep burdening your prefrontal cortex when it's under so much of stress, the entire brain functions will shift to the amygdala. If that is the case, you would get emotional. That is when you will experience something called brain freeze. If you have done this exam previously, you know what I'm talking about. There could have been a situation where nothing works out for you. You are trying to read through the scenario, nothing goes into your head. You are trying to develop the answer, but you can't type anything. Your fingers are numb. You are sweating profusely, or you are feeling extremely cold. You have panicked. You feel jittery. So all these type of problems, you'd encounter all these type of problems since your amygdala is in play. So you have to take steps to switch off your amygdala rather than trying to keep fighting directionlessly or aimlessly. So in order to switch off the amygdala, the only thing which you can do is to close your eyes and breathe slowly for 2 minutes. So when inhaling, inhale through your nose. When exhaling, exhale from your mouth. By doing that, you are trying to recalibrate the brain. By doing that, you are trying to make sure that the amygdala switches off and your brain functions will shift to your prefrontal cortex. And when inhaling, take a deep breath, count to 3 slowly. And when exhaling, put the entire breath out, thereby counting to 3 slowly once more. So inhale through your nose, count to 3 slowly, and exhale from your mouth. Again, count to 3 slowly. Do this for 2 minutes. Close your eyes and do this for 2 minutes. then you can get out of a stressful situations. You won't feel jittery, you won't be exposed to brain freeze. Why is this the case? Because you have essentially taken a step towards recalibrating your brain or calming yourself down. You have to be calm and composed both mentally and physically in order to make sure that you think through your prefrontal cortex. So however much disciplined you are, towards the last section you will encounter some type of additional level of stress. That's quite normal. Don't blame yourself. Simply focus on your breathing and get out of the stressful situation. Now you know why, how to get out of a stressful situation. Now you know which part of your brain functions when you are under a stressful situation. Now you know what you need to do to switch off your amygdala. So do it whenever you are exposed to a stressful situation. And most successful students, what they do is they do this technique, they practice this technique before attempting each section. So let's assume you are done with section number 1, you are in section number 2. So before attempting section number 2, although your timer will keep running out from 60 minutes, you'd see the timer running out, don't worry about it. Close your eyes, breathe for 2 minutes, do this breathing exercise, inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. When inhaling, count to 3 slowly, and when exhaling, count to 3 slowly. When you do so, you are effectively taking steps to refresh your brain, recalibrate your brain. You are effectively taking steps to make sure that for 2 minutes, your brain is resting. And this will help you immensely. You might think that I'm asking you to waste 2 minutes per section, which is not going to be the case. Although you'd be focusing on your breathing for 2 minutes, it's as if you are gaining some time, because if you're utilizing your prefrontal, if you're taking steps to utilize or think through your prefrontal cortex, if you're taking steps to overcome fatigue, if you're taking steps to make sure that you recalibrate or refresh your brain, then you will read through the information and gain a good understanding of what appears within each scenario, and you will have the capability of developing the answer plan in a successful manner, because it's as if you are thinking through a whole new brain. Okay, so do this before starting each section. When dealing with students who have been successful in their SCS exam, most of TCSS students do this. When they're practicing it for the first time, first couple of times, they feel like that they're wasting time. But by the time they are done with the 6 mocks, by the time they have practiced this technique over and over across the last 4 to 5 mock exams, they are capable of successfully implementing it at the real exam. Because as I mentioned at the very beginning of this session, the examiner is not just testing your technical knowledge and application skills. The examiner is also testing whether you are capable of managing a stressful situation. Because if you are capable of managing stressors, then you can become a good and successful corporate leader, and you can run your own business. When running a business, you are taking on a lot of risks. You will experience hiccups. Whatever the hiccups are, if you keep pushing forward, you will be a successful business person. So a successful business person or a successful corporate head should be calm and composed when faced with stressful situations. So I implement this technique in my daily life as well. So that's exactly why, however much work I have, I'm not stressed. I usually work for 16 to 18 hours a day. Although that is the case, I don't have trouble sleeping. I don't have trouble waking up. And at the same time, whenever, when working for 16 to 18 hours, I do experience fatigue. Whenever I do so, I, take a quick 2-minute, breathing break. I call it a breathing break. I take a quick 2 to 5 minute breathing break, get out of the stressful situation and keep moving forward. You should do it at your exam as well. If so, you will never run out of time. You will come up with high quality answers, and at the same time, you will gain extremely good marks at your real exam. And if you can drink some water to calm your nerves. It helps as well. However, if you are attempting the exam at home, you don't have the opportunity to have a water bottle with you. And in certain examination centers, the invigilators won't let you have a water bottle with you. So the best way is to practice your stress management technique on top of the answering and time management techniques, which we taught you last week when attempting each mock exam. And this practice will ensure that you manage your stresses in a successful manner at your real examination. And in the upcoming weeks, avoid these deflections. Don't rely on any predictions, because in a real life corporate environment, even if you are the CEO of the company, you are not in a position to accurately predict or forecast what the company is going to face tomorrow. So don't go for predictions. I've seen tutors out there predicting about scenarios which can be thrown at you at your real exam. Don't try to rely on them, because in a real life corporate environment, you can't do so. Instead, simply focus your attention towards attempting the 6 mocks and conducting revision based on the same 6 mock exams. And excessive industry analysis is a problem, especially concerning this industry. This is a highly technical pre-scene if you really think about it. So don't try to, analyze or evaluate this industry, because I was having a chat with one of the students last week, and this individual thought that Leothayre is similar to SpaceX, which is not the case, because SpaceX is a totally different company. We are a small satellite manufacturer, which is manufacturing CubeSats. And on the other hand, SpaceX is a totally different company, which is into manufacturing rockets. They do outer space launches and whatnot. They are interested in involving themselves with outer space tourism and whatnot. So they are into manufacturing rockets. They have their launch capabilities. Whereas if you look at Leothayre, we don't have launch capabilities. We depend on launch service providers. Our prime, business model is based on manufacturing satellites, not manufacturing rockets. So, we are not SpaceX. So this individual was arguing with me. You might be part of this webinar as well. This individual was arguing with me about the fact that Leothayre is, similar to SpaceX. And when I asked this individual from where he got the information, he said that ChatGPT, he had updated or uploaded the pre-scene document to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT had said that Leothayre is quite close to SpaceX, which is not accurate. So don't try to analyze the industry on your own because if you do so, you will come to the wrong conclusions. If so, you'd struggle at your real exam. So simply, rely on what appears within the pre-scene document. And we have, developed a set of slides concerning the industry. So simply go through this set of slides within 5 to 10 minutes. Other than that, you need not try to understand what happens within your industry. Simply focus your attention towards refining your skill set by attempting the 6 mocks and redeveloping answer plans. And misguided use of past papers is a problem, given the fact that past papers or past variants are based on different previous pre-scenes. And if you look at the SCS examination, as I mentioned earlier, the scenarios within this exam are 100% aligned, should be 100% aligned with the news articles which appear within your current pre-scene. And if you look at previous pre-scenes, the news articles which appeared within previous pre-scenes are totally irrelevant to Leothayre. And on top of that, just look at the financial statements. The financial statements are different. And on top of that, just look at the risk report. The risk report is totally different to all the pre-scenes which I've seen across the past 10 to 12 years. So there's absolutely no point of relying on past variants or past papers which are dependent on different pre-scene documents. Instead, when conducting your preparations, it's essential that you gain a good understanding of how each syllabus area can be tested concerning what's highlighted within your pre-scene, and how to improve your application skills concerning what's highlighted within your pre-scene. So that's why it's essential that you attempt exam standard and pre-scene specific mock exams rather than relying on past exam variants. Because if you are to decrypt the logic behind each answer of past exam variants, you have to master the pre-scene document. You don't have time to go through a totally different pre-scene, try to decrypt pre-scene info, then try to understand the logic of past exam variants. Instead, simply rely on attempting exam specific and exam standard and pre-scene specific mock exams. And information overload is a killer. I've dealt with students who end up attempting about 15, 20 mock exams because there are a set of students who invest on multiple service providers, which you should not do because you are expected to. If you really look at the timeline, between the pre-scene release until your exam, there's just 7 weeks. So the examiner is actually hinting about something. Within 7 weeks, there's some type of work which you can do and some type of activities which you cannot do. So within 7 weeks, you can't attempt 15, 20 mock exams. So, and on top of that, I've seen students trying to decrypt industry related information, spending or wasting, I would say, wasting a lot of time trying to understand the industry, trying to understand real life examples and whatnot, which is totally unnecessary. And also, I've seen students going through their study texts, trying to go through the theories heavily, trying to memorize theories, which is not going to actually help you, because in this exam, yes, you need to know your theories, but it's all about how you apply these theories, considering the scenario at hand. So all these things will lead to information overload. And there are another set of students, even after sticking to our study plan, even after attempting all 6 mocks and conducting revision, watching all master classes, still they want to do something towards the last week of the exam. Even I have felt this as a student, because I can remember up until the operational level, I was involved with throughout my CIMA career, I was involved with self-studies. I didn't have time to attend classes those days, and there weren't many classes as well. So there weren't any online classes when I was doing CIMA. So I didn't have any other option but to rely on the study texts and be involved with self-studies. So as an individual who's involved with self-studies, I have to come up with a study plan before I commence my preparations, and I have to stick to it and be disciplined. If not, I'd walk into the exam with knowledge gaps. So I always used to stick to my study plan. However, according to my study plan, within the last week, I'm supposed to take a break. Although that is the case, even after sticking to the study plan, I always thought, okay, I might have missed out on something. So let's try to reattempt the mocks. Let's try to redo the questions. Let's try to go through my study notes, my answer plans. So I try to do all these things unnecessarily closer to the exam, knowing very well that I have adhered to the study plan. So I changed all these things from the management level onwards. And this made sure that I gained better marks from the management level onwards, because when conducting preparations, I've stuck to a plan. If I've stuck to a plan, I've done everything properly. When I'm thorough with all elements, then before the exam, I should take a break. It's essential that you take a break as well. And if you take a break, you'd be calm and composed at your real exam. If so, you will function really well. So information overload is a killer. However much prepared you are, you will feel that you have not done enough. Just let go of those thoughts. Always remember that I told you to stick to the study plan. And if you have stuck to the study plan in the last week, even if your brain is asking you to do some more, just don't listen to your brain, because your brain is not always giving you the right signals. And overemphasis on the exam blueprint is a wastage of time. Don't try to decrypt it on your own. When developing this webinar series, we have made sure to cover all major elements of your exam blueprint. So I took you through the examiner's comments at the very inception of this session. And you would have seen that I've covered all these elements as per what the examiner asks you, or how to conduct your preparation before the exam and how to attempt the exam on the exam day. I've covered all these elements via the webinar series. So you need not try to decrypt the exam blueprint. I've covered it via the 4 webinars which I've conducted so far. And I will also, when conducting the workshops, I will further fine-tune, make steps to ensure that you fine-tune your knowledge areas, thereby adhering to the exam blueprint. So avoid these deflections. Simply make up your mind to attempt the 6 mocks and conduct revision, thereby redeveloping answer plans concerning the same 6 mock exams. Don't do anything else, because you can't do everything under the sun within 6 weeks. Because as I mentioned earlier, from the pre-scene release until your exam, there's just 7 weeks. So the examiner expects you to simply fine-tune your knowledge by attempting mocks and conducting your revision focused on the same 6 mock exams. And that's the same thing which we are preaching at TCS. And you might be attempting the exam at home. If you are planning to do so, I will share this link via the WhatsApp group. Go click on it and get your bearings with the technicalities behind your Pearson VUE system. And if you had invested on premium, you need not worry, because our exam platform is the exact replica of the same system on which you attempt your real exam. And oops, I've mentioned this as the MCS pass rate. Sorry about that. Our SCS pass rate for the last sitting was 90%. And if you want to achieve a similar feat, if you want to pass, simply stick to the study plan, start attempting the mock exams, and conduct your revision based on the same mocks. If you do so, although your pass mark is 80, you will get extremely good marks. Although the student has not mentioned the mark, this student ended up getting 102, and this was the first sitting. So an individual who is coming through the exemption route. So if this individual who is coming through the exemption route in the first sitting itself achieved 100 plus marks simply by sticking to the study plan, you can achieve the same as well. So I hope you'd stick to a study plan and start preparations if you are yet to, because you still have time. And if you want a personalized study plan, please DM me. I will get in touch with you. I will share a personalized study plan so that you know what to do in the upcoming 5 weeks. All right, so it brings us to the Q&A. If you have any questions, you can switch on your mic and talk, or drop a message via the chat. I'm going to pause the recording. Okay, I think another question came through. Let me pause the recording once more. All right, folks. So thank you very much for those questions. I hope I addressed everything. So if you want to contact us, you can do it via our website, which is www.study@tcs.com. Visit our website and click on the contact button and drop a message. Our admin staff will get in touch with you via email during office hours, and you can email us at info@study@tcs.com or WhatsApp us on this number. Also, I invite you to follow us on our social media handles, especially YouTube and TikTok, because the recorded versions of the weekly webinars and workshops will be uploaded to our YouTube handle. And via TikTok, you'd gain access to 6 videos, which is a good mind map of the entire pre-scene, which is based on this pre-scene mind map, which we have already shared with you. So on your way to office, for instance, keep watching these 6 TikTok videos so that on a continuous basis, on a daily basis, you constantly keep reminding yourself about the most important points which appear within your pre-scene document. And I urge you to read the blog post which we have developed focused on Leothayre, which can be accessed by clicking on this area. So having said that, it brings us to the end of the webinar series. Thank you very much for being a part of this. And I hope if you are yet to start preparations, I hope you'd start right now rather than waiting until the last moment, which will give you enough and more time to practice the 6 mocks and conduct revision based on the same 6 mock exams. And if you're yet to learn answering and time management techniques, please watch the recorded version of last week's webinar. And to those of you who had already started attempting mock exams, kudos to you. Keep up the good work. Don't feel demotivated after attempting each mock exam. It's going to be hard, but you can fix all these problems, as I mentioned earlier, when conducting your revision. So you can fix all these problems if you stick to our study plan. Keep moving forward. And if you have any questions or concerns, always you can reach me via WhatsApp. I'm always there to help you guys out. So thank you very much for joining in. I'll see you guys next week, next Saturday, with the first workshop focused on the F3 syllabus. Thank you and take care.